I have an entire gaming PC for under $500. What I did was I went on the PC builder at microcenter.com and I went through every single category. So CPU, motherboard, RAM, GPU, and I selected the lowest priced component. And that gives you everything on the table here. Is this gonna be the best gaming PC ever? I don't know, we'll put it to the test. It's under $500, and that's including the monitor and even a keyboard and mouse, which is actually insane. For CPU, I went for the lowest price CPU that we currently have in inventory, and that was one of the caveats for this challenge. I wanted to make sure that A, it was the lowest price, and B, it was in stock. We're starting off with an AMD Ryzen 5 5500. That's an AM4 CPU, that's 6 cores, 12 threads. It's a 4.2 gigahertz max boost with a 3.6 gigahertz base. This is Zen 3 architecture, so this is a little bit on the older side. Paired off with that, I have this MSI A520M A Pro motherboard. Now this is an M-ATX board, which is gonna be perfect for the case that we're gonna be using. And then I paired this off with 16 gigabytes of DDR4 3200 memory, which I got for a really good price actually. And then for our storage, 256 gigabytes of SSD storage with this inline SSD. Now, obviously going for the lowest priced SSD means I went for one of the lower capacities. So that's gonna get you Windows, a couple of games, Call of Duty, some of those bigger games. That's gonna be a really tight squeeze on this SSD, but again, everything under $500. For the case, we have the Cooler Master Masterbox Q300L. This is a smaller case. It's gonna have only one fan with that exhaust. But the nice thing is this CPU comes with a cooler, and I'm not really too worried about airflow, to be perfectly honest, because this will passively cool itself with the air being pulled through, and our GPU is gonna pull some air through as well. Everything for this build really hinges on the GPU. Fortunately, Micro Center has a GPU trade-in program, so I was able to scoop up a GPU that was traded in by one of our Micro Center customers. And if you're not familiar with the Micro Center trade-in program, you can bring in a working GPU that you purchased at Micro Center, and you can trade it in for in-store credit. So you can use that for the purchase of a new GPU, components, or whatever else you want to use it for. Now, we test those GPUs vigorously, and then we sell them, and you can actually get a really good deal on a GPU. But I got this EVGA 2060, which is 6 gigabytes of VRAM, and I got that for $139. So that allowed me to get everything here that you see on the table under $500. This monitor was about $69.99. This is a 1080p, 21.5 inch, and it's a 100 hertz monitor, which frankly is more than enough for what we need. I'm gonna start opening everything and getting everything set up. For our power supply, I also went with this Thermaltake Smart 500 watt. It's more than enough for what we need for today. I mean, again, I went lowest price across the board. So 500 watts for 2060, Ryzen 5 5500, that should be fine. Motherboard over here, this is an M-ATX, so you can see it's a little bit smaller than your ATX motherboards. And AM4, so that means that all of the pins are gonna be on the CPU. So that's just something to keep in mind. This is the AMD Ryzen 5 5500. I actually like putting AM4 CPUs in because they're actually very easy. Look how painless that was. Okay, CPU is installed. Now we're gonna move on to our SSD. Now for this one, I'm going to need the M2 screws to get that in. So at this price point, you're really not getting a lot of those quality of life features that you get on some of the more premium motherboards. So things like Q latches or, easy latches and things like that. Kind of an exercise that I like to do every now and then. I play around in our PC builder, and I just like to see what is the cheapest build that I can do right now. And it just so happened that we had this GPU that was traded in, this EVGA 2060, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. So because that one was available and that one was actually pretty decent for pairing off with everything else here, it just seemed like, yeah, let's make this video. This would be kind of fun because then we can sort of showcase what it looks like on the lower end of the spectrum compared to everything that's going on the absolute high end, because there's a lot going on up there, but it's interesting to sort of look back on parts. I got our memory installed. That one was pretty easy. 16 gigabytes total, which frankly, it's more than enough. I'm really aiming for 1080p gaming. I want to see what I can get out of this. I think depending on the game, I can actually get some pretty good performance across the board. There were some other CPU options that would probably be a little bit better, especially on the AM4 platform, but I went for the lowest priced part. So that's why we ended up with the 5500. But fortunately, it came with a cooler. So that actually helped a lot in keeping the price down here. So everything's set there. I took off the pre-installed hardware and I'm just gonna put the cooler straight on. Pre-applied thermal paste. You love to see it. Boy, that makes some terrifying noises, but that's on there pretty good. All right, easy installation. And then the fan, and just connect right there. Motherboard's all set. I mean, that was very easy. Especially since this is such a small cooler, it's easy to just install it now because look at all this space. That's perfectly fine. This is $39.99 for this case, which is not bad if you're gonna go for an MATX build. It can get a little toasty in this case, so you have to keep in mind the components that you put in. I'm not worried about heat when it comes to the components that I'm using today. I'm not worried about heat at all, but if you were gonna step up, and go a little bit higher, a little bit hotter, then I would recommend looking at a different case, but for what we're doing today, this is perfectly fine. You need to put the mounting hardware. I have to install every single one. So again, operating at this, budget level, these are some of the concessions that you make when it comes to, the hardware and the features, the quality of life features that they come with, right? Like the motherboard, very bare bones, very simple. There's no VRMs on any of it either, not like you need it. The case itself, I have to install all the mounting hardware, so that's a bunch more screws. Having pre-installed little posts for your motherboard, I wouldn't call it a premium feature, but it's definitely a feature that makes building a lot easier because it's one less step that you have to do. And so building on an AM4 platform in 2025, does it have value there? I don't know. It really depends on your use case. Depends on what you're gonna do with the PC, depends on what games you're gonna play. Am I gonna do Black Myth Wukong on this? Am I gonna do Indiana Jones? Actually, I don't think I can run Indiana Jones on this. I have to check those minimum specs. But, for what it is and what it can do, it might actually be the perfect PC for someone. I mean, anything browser-based, yeah, it's gonna be fine. You can do browser stuff on a Minis Forum, mini PC, and we have a bunch of those available. You can do that on a Raspberry Pi. You can do that on anything. Playing games, indie games, run on nothing, Indie games, and there's a lot of them on Steam, especially with the Steam Deck and the hardware that's available on the Steam Deck. Indie games just keep growing, and there's more and more. So you can run that perfectly fine. And you can run that at most any resolution, to be perfectly frank. And if you're a gamer who's into, older games, I still play Skyrim. I still play Fallout New Vegas. I still play Fallout 4. Fallout 4 is 10 years old now? Oh man, I think I'm dating myself a little bit. But I still play those old games. And on a system like this, yeah, it's gonna run fine. Oh, this is funny. Okay, so I have my one system fan, and there we go. There's a one system fan header right there. So that's all we need. So as new hardware comes out, and as we keep pushing the bleeding edge of compute, there's still a lot on the low end that I think people operate in that space, even in this day and age. And frankly, 2060, it's not that old. I mean, sure, it's old, but it's not that old. So first and foremost, I want to comment, this is clean, right? This is a used GPU, but this is actually pretty clean. And I'm looking at this, not really seeing much dust in there. Maybe a little bit on the back of the fans, but nothing glaringly obvious or bad. You can definitely tell it is used, but this is in pretty good quality. And that's what's kind of cool about the GPU trade-in program, right? Because obviously on one end of the spectrum, you can take your working GPU, trade it in, get store credit, and then use that, apply it to a new GPU. On the other end of the spectrum, gives your GPU a second life and someone can use it in their next build. Something like this, a $500 PC, I mean, this can actually mean the world to someone because $500, that still costs less than a PlayStation 5 Pro. Plus with Steam, summer sales, winter sales, Epic Game Store, and all of the free games that you can accumulate there. I mean, there's a lot that you can do in the PC gaming space, and the fact that you can do it under $500, that's really awesome. So giving that GPU second life, I think is really cool. I mean, there you have it. This is what a $500 build looks like as you're putting it together. Got a couple of cables here. These are gonna be really, really easy. Have our case cables, so I'll just get that installed right now. So again, we talked about quality of life when it comes to parts, and obviously on this budget end of the spectrum, quality of life kind of goes out of the window. Power supplies. Modular power supplies is, having a modular power supply is a quality of life thing because I really don't need all of this, and this is all attached. So there's a bunch going on here that I frankly just don't need to use at all. So now I'm gonna add a whole bunch of extra cable management to this project that frankly I don't need. Modular power supplies, way to go. But the other thing I wanna make a note of is that power supplies are the one component that you really do not want to skimp out on in your budget build. Obviously, I just went for the lowest price power supply. Does that make this the best power supply? I'm actually not sure. I've never used this one before. It's probably gonna be perfectly fine in this build. General rule of thumb, when it comes to selecting your power supply, you're gonna want to do the research or talk to one of our knowledgeable associates to get the right power supply for you that you know is gonna work great. It's gonna have a really good efficiency rating, and you wanna make sure it's not gonna give you any issues, because if your power supply goes, your whole system can potentially go. So this $500 build can be a $0 paperweight. There's a little like offset bracket here that you install to the power supply first, and then you can just install the whole thing. I've used this case before, I forgot about that step. Actually, this is the same case that we use for our podcast PC that controls all of our cameras and everything for the podcast. We fit a little bit more power into the case, but I will say that PC, thermals, no issue. Like no issue at all. I think we put like a 12th gen Intel chip in there. I don't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, that PC runs like a champ. And it's really nice just having a dedicated PC specifically for that purpose. I will say right off the bat, this is not gonna be my prettiest build because everything is just kind of haphazardly run. The USB cable for the front panel is really short, and I couldn't get it to run around the back and go up to the connector here. So it's just right in the middle of the case. Okay, now the last thing I need to do is install the GPU, but there's a couple of punch outs here. So I have to take these out. Cool, all right, so I have our GPU. Again, EVGA 2060. Also, I need a comment. EVGA, we do miss you in the GPU market. I have an EVGA 3070 FTW3. Really, really, really like their GPUs and really wish they're still making them. So rip to a real one. Let's put this right in. Okay, and GPU, one single 8-pin, so that's easy enough. Look at that. Look at that. GPU isn't even bigger than the motherboard. Everything right on that side. I could put some fans in this. Actually, I think I had enough budget to maybe get 1 or 2 fans because I came in just under 500. I think it was 413 for all of the components, and then the monitor on top of that brought me like 480 something, and then the keyboard and mouse is the inline keyboard mouse, which is like $5. So I think I could have squeezed in another fan or 2. But I'm not too worried about thermals in this build, to be perfectly honest. I'm really not worried about thermals at all. I mean, it would be nice to get maybe a little extra airflow, but also look at all these channels for air. So much room for activities. But man, is this a mess. I'm gonna try to make this neater. Oh yeah, and there's some more cables that were just tucked underneath. I'm gonna try to make this neater, but I'm not gonna break a sweat over it. there you have it. $500 PC, actually $413 PC. $500 with all the peripherals. Also, there's no RGB on this at all, so all I have to go off of are the post lights and the one spinning fan. Well, two spinning fans actually, got the exhaust fan over here. I left the acrylic off so you could just see the internals. Not really proud of this cable management, to be perfectly honest, but I think it's okay. This is gonna work pretty well. And let's wait for that post screen. And this is the inline keyboard and mouse I was talking about. I mean, it's not a gaming keyboard or gaming mouse, but for the price, it's pretty good. Like, it's a keyboard and mouse, that's all you need. Ooh, there we go. Heyo, all right. So everything's good, everything is set, everything's there. I'm gonna get Windows installed, and like I said before, get this set up, get a bunch of games installed, and let's just see what we can do with this guy. Chicken jockey. I started with this because when you think about a $500 PC, you think of Minecraft. I mean, this is kind of the bread and butter of a PC in this budget range. I mean, this is perfect for, you know, a young kid. This is a really good entry-level budget PC. And frankly, the parts are not outdated. I mean, a 2060, that's not that old. Ryzen 5 5500, also not that old. But across the board, I mean, performance is there. You know, it's running fine. GPU utilization, CPU utilization, both really low. Temps are great too, so look, big mushroom. You can come into microcenter, and if you are on a very strict budget, you can walk out with a gaming PC in that budget range, because yes, there's your top-end AAA games that run on the latest and greatest hardware, but the reality is that there's tons of games that people play that aren't AAA titles. Games that are a lot of fun, usually made by indie developers, and frankly, like I said, run on anything, literally. I mean, look at this. Max frame rate in Lethal Company. Let's see. Yeah, look at that. Everything's running rock solid. We're on experimentation. I don't even think Lethal Company has video settings. Like, what can I even change for? I can change gamma brightness, full screen. That's kind of it. But yeah, no, performance is there. And the nice thing too, you know, again, everything under $500, this budget monitor, it's a 100 hertz monitor. So it's gonna do you better than a 60 hertz monitor. It's gonna feel like a gaming monitor. It's not a 120, not 144 hertz, but 100 hertz actually still works really well. This game's so much fun, but it's so creepy. I mean, I don't have audio on right now, so it's kind of whatever. I guess it's kind of worse if I'm playing this without audio on, because I don't know what's skulking around the corners. Also, one thing I want to call out. I love this game so much, I printed the bolt from Lethal Company. It's kind of cool because you can open it up. I guess you could put stuff inside. But this was a neat little STL that I found. Looks exactly like it. Look at that. I'll put this up here. All right, now I'm trying Valheim. This is another game that I really love playing. And while this is I guess you can call it an indie game, it's a little bit more graphically intensive, even though the art style, you wouldn't think it's a graphically intensive game, but because it's, you know, kind of like Rust, like DayZ, sort of like Minecraft, where you can edit the world, build bases, things like that. Things can get kind of chunky performance-wise, but frame rate's looking pretty good. I'm in the hundreds, you know, 1% lows, 32, 39. Not gonna show much in terms of latency, but it's definitely pushing the GPU a little bit. I see it's like 70% utilization, about 70 degrees. CPU's running nice at 57 degrees. And I have no additional fans on here aside from this exhaust fan out the back. Usually games like this, when you're at your home base, you know, it runs kind of chunky. I mean, I'm definitely dipping, I'm in the 70s. But anything over, you know, 60 in this game, it's actually pretty fine. Let's see, I'll take a portal to a random place and I'll see if I get any performance loss. I don't remember what biome this is. It's been a minute since I've played this. I see our utilization jumping up on the GPU. Oh, here we go, we're up in the mountains. Oh, frame rate, ooh, 150. Yeah, I mean, all the way up here, it's like pretty fine. I mean, yeah, this is great. This works perfectly fine. These are some of my favorite games. And frankly, a lot of games I play aren't really crazy graphically intensive AAA titles. I mean, I play Helldivers 2. That can be a little bit intensive, but you can actually run that. You know, I was playing that in a B580, no issue. This 2060, I believe it's second generation tensor cores and first generation ray tracing cores. So it can do ray tracing, which we can do in Cyberpunk. Let's see how it runs. I mean, my expectation is that if we dial in the settings, we're gonna get a really good playable experience out of Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk was a little rough at launch. You know, I bought it on launch day and it was a little rough around the edges, but it's gotten a lot better over time. I mean, honestly, Cyberpunk's been out for a couple of years now, so they've really added a lot to this game. And I'm just gonna run the benchmark in Cyberpunk right off the bat. Let's see where we're at. Average frame rate in the 30s. 1% lows, I mean, it's dropping to the 20s. Now, GPU temp, 70s. Utilization, 99%. CPU, definitely cranking there too. 70 degrees, 68 degrees, but utilization in the 40s, low 30s. Yeah, that frame rate, all we're getting is about 30 frames right now. But again, you know, 2060, this is what, 4 years old at this point? Probably closer to 5 years old. Actually, no. Oh boy, I'm really dating myself. Yeah, 2060, that's more than 5 years. Now we're jumping up a little bit. 45, 44 frames per second, 1% lows in the 30s. Yeah, I really want to hit 60, and I'm gonna be honest, I think I would just drop ray trace completely. I would rather just turn ray trace off and then go for medium-ish settings and just see where I land there, because I would rather turn down the graphic fidelity. Yeah, 39 FPS average, minimum 31. I would just get rid of ray trace completely. Let's try high. Let's just try high settings. DLSS on. All right, there we go. Better frame rate, 70s, 1% lows, 50s, 60. This is exactly what I would want. Anything 60 plus, especially with 1% lows hovering around in the 60s, this is what I'm looking for at least Cyberpunk. Like, this is perfectly fine. I think I'm gonna jump into the world after this and run around for a minute, but I mean, there you have it. Cyberpunk's running great on this. Like I said, you do have to make some sacrifices. You just have to get to know those settings, and you have to sort of come to terms with the fact that you're gonna sacrifice a couple of things in terms of graphical fidelity. But you can game on this, and under $500, the whole thing. That's really awesome. Like, we jumped up in the 80s, average FPS 80, minimum 67. That is exactly what I would want. So this is just using the high preset with DLSS on. So let's go back, let's hop into the world. Let's run around a little bit and let's just see how this feels. When I look at my Steam library or my Epic Games library, I have a ton of games. Older games, indie games, games that I know are gonna run on this system perfectly fine. Black Myth Wukong, bit of a reach. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, looks like it just won't work. But, you know, if you don't want to play those new bleeding edge games and you have a giant backlog of old games, because I definitely do, I have tons of games I still haven't even opened yet, this machine can definitely handle that. Well, let's see where I left off. Oh, I was driving around last time I was playing. All right, so I am in the 80s, 1% lows, in the 70s. Oh, this is perfectly fine. Are you kidding me? This is perfectly fine. Hello. 100 hertz monitor. I mean, this is great. Obviously, everything here is budget level, right? Even this keyboard and mouse. But, I mean, I can play on this. It's gonna start some trouble. Yeah, I mean, this is fine. I can actually just, I would play this. I would sit here and play this, especially for the price range. I would sit here and play this, no problem. I can hear the fan whirring a little bit, I mean, let's see what temps look like. GPU's getting pushed a bit, 83 degrees. That's a bit hot, you know. It's not bad, but it's a little bit warmer than I would like. I mean, I would like to max out in like the 70s, but frankly, the GPUs can handle those temperatures, so it's not an issue. 74 degrees on the CPU, so we're definitely pushing it there, but there's a lot of headroom on the CPU. Like, that CPU can get hotter. Maybe having some more airflow in this case, you know, having some additional fans for the intake would definitely help. You know, that's another, you can get fans for another about $6, $7 each. Just like 2 simple fans on the front just to get that intake going. I think that'll really help that GPU. That GPU is a little bit cramped with that power supply being there. You know, those 2 intake fans, probably having a little bit of a hard time, but the CPU is totally fine. But I mean, frame rate's solid, man. Hanging in the 80s, 1% lows. I mean, I saw 59 there for a second, but 1% lows in the 50s to 70s. This, I'm not even gonna label it playable. I'm gonna label it great. Like, this is great gaming experience. And I'm playing on high. It looks good. It actually looks really, really good. Yeah, you lose ray tracing, but honestly, this looks really nice. So obviously, if you are someone who wants to get into gaming, but you are on a budget, you can do it at your local microcenter. Just check out microcenter.com. You can go onto the PC Builder. You can check out all of the parts that are in stock at your local microcenter. This 2060 that I got, this is from our GPU trade-in program, and I was able to scoop that up and use it for this, and you get a 90-day in-store warranty. So remember, we check out those GPUs and make sure that they're working flawlessly before we put them out on the shelves for you to buy. And you get that 90-day warranty. So if you run into any issues at all, just stop by your local microcenter and we'll take care of you. So remember, if you don't have a microcenter near you, comment hashtag I want a microcenter near me.